Hello everyone and welcome back to a new video. In today's video I want to talk about something that I think is not covered enough when it comes to moving to the Philippines. Because if you look at the most expat content, a lot of it is focused on retirees, pensioners, or people already in a late stage of life. But what about younger adults? What about people in their 20s? 30s or early 40s? What about people who are not moving with a pension but still need to work, earn, build and create a long-term stability? That is what this video is about. And more specifically, I want to talk about income. Because when you move to the Philippines as a younger adult, one of the biggest questions is not just where will you live, but how will you actually support your life there. So in this video, I will break this down into 3 parts. First, local work, meaning actual formal jobs within the Philippines. Second, online work and freelancing. And third, building your own company or business. Because each of these paths comes with very different opportunities, very different problems and very different legal lifestyle realities. So let's start with local work. This is probably the first thing many young people think about. They imagine moving to the Philippines and just find a regular job there. And yes, technically work does exist, but this is where people need to become realistic very quickly. Because local work in the Philippines is not the same as local work in Western Europe, North America, Australia, or many other countries foreigners come from. The first big reality is wages. For many normal jobs in the Philippines, local wages are much lower than what foreigners are used to. So if you move here and want to live on local income, you may need to change your lifestyle expectations quite a lot. That means you cannot automatically expect the same level of comfort, savings, housing standard, consumer habits or financial freedom you may have been used to back home. So yes, local work is possible in principle, but it usually comes with a need to adapt your lifestyle to local reality. And that's something people should think about honestly before they move. The second big issue is legality. A foreigner cannot just casually arrive and start working like a local with no legal process. Work in the Philippines is tied to immigration and labor rules. That means if you want a real local employment, you need to think about whether you actually have the legal basis to do that. This is where people make one of their first mistakes. They treat moving and working like they are the same thing, but they are not. Being allowed to enter the Philippines is not the same as being allowed to work there. So if someone is seriously considering local work, they need to understand that legal permission matters and that normal work is not something to improvise carelessly. Another big issue is competition. Many local jobs are already competitive for Filipinos themselves. So the question is not just can I find a job? The better question is why would a company hire me instead of a local person? And this is where a lot of foreigners misunderstand their own position. Being foreigner does not automatically make you more employable. In some cases, it can actually make things harder. Unless you bring a clear advantage, a special skill, a role that genuinely benefits from your background, or a company willing to go through the extra effort, then local employment may not be easy. So the stronger local work cases are usually situations where the foreigner brings something specific. That might be specialized knowledge, a language advantage, certain management or training ability, technical skills, a niche role, or a business context where a foreigner actually adds clear value. But for generic work, it is usually much less realistic. Now, that does not mean local work is impossible. It means it has to be approached seriously. And if someone does go this route, they should expect trade-offs. For example, lower wages, more bureaucracy, more dependence on formal permissions, and often a need to live more in line with local income reality. So if someone's lived in the Philippines through local work, they may need a simpler, more practical, more disciplined lifestyle than they first imagined. That means locations matters too. The local salary may go further in some areas than others, and this is something younger adults need to understand well. A life that works in the provincial area may be much harder to sustain in a more expensive city. So local work is not just about the job itself, but also about choosing a lifestyle and location that fits the income. Another difficulty with local work is expectations. Some people move here thinking, I'll just find something when I get there. That is usually not a strong plan. A better plan would be understanding the legal route, understanding the wage reality, understanding the role you're actually qualified for, and understanding whether the lifestyle supported by the job is really what you want. Because many people focus only on the dream of moving, not on daily reality after the move. Now, are there still opportunities here? Yes, there are, especially for people who are realistic, adaptable, and willing to live in a more grounded way. For someone who actually wants a simpler lifestyle, who understands the culture well, and who is not expecting a Western salary with a Western standard of living, local work can sometimes be part of a workable life. But in my opinion, for many younger adults, local work is usually not the strongest path unless the fit is unusually good. And that brings us to the second path: online work and freelancing. This is where things become much more interesting for many younger foreigners or expats, because if you can earn online while living in the Philippines, that changes everything, because your income is no longer tied directly to local wages, and that is one of the biggest advantages you can have. If your earnings come from clients, customers, or employers outside of the Philippines, but your cost of living is partly inside the Philippines, then the match can work much better in your favor. This is why online work is often one of the strongest options for young adults moving here. Online work could mean remote employment, freelancing, online support work, design, editing, writing, marketing, operations, customer service, virtual assistant work, content creation, or service-based digital work. The big strength here is flexibility. You are not depending on the local labor market in the same way. You are not limited to local salary levels in the same way, and in many cases you also gain more freedom over where you live. For example, someone with stable online income may be able to live in a quieter or cheaper area as long as the internet and infrastructure are good enough. But of course, online work is not some magical easy solution either. It comes with its own problems. First, stability. A lot of freelance or online work can be inconsistent. Clients come and go. Platforms change, workloads change, income can go up and down, so one of the biggest mistakes people make is relying on weak online income as if it were stable enough to support a whole move. That is risky. A better approach is to build it first, strengthen it first, and test whether it is really consistent before fully depending on it. The second challenge is discipline. Online work gives freedom, but freedom is only useful if you can manage it. If someone is disorganized, distracted, or always starting and stopping, then remote work can become unstable quickly. The third challenge is infrastructure. If your whole life depends on online income, and internet matters a lot. Power reliability matters, backup system matters, phone and laptop security matter. So, if someone wants to live off online work in the Philippines, they need to think practically. What happens if the internet goes down? What happens if the laptop breaks? What happens if the phone gets stolen? What happens if a bank login depends on a SIM card from another country? So even this part requires serious preparation. Now, legally, this area can also become complicated depending on how someone structures their life, taxes, business setup, and residency status. And that is why people should be careful not to assume that online means no legal considerations. It may be easier in practice than local employment, but it still needs thought, especially if the income grows, becomes formal, or turns into something business-like. Now, the good side is that online work is often one of the best bridges for younger adults. It can let you move gradually, it can let you test life in the Philippines while keeping external income, it can let you build flexibility before taking on something bigger, and in many cases that makes it a very strong middle path between dependence and full business ownership. So, let's move to the third path, starting your own company or business. This is a path many people find the most exciting. And I understand that, because the Philippines does have real business opportunities. This is also the path where most people often make the biggest mistakes, because a lot of foreigners arrive with too much confidence and too little local understanding. They see a gap and think that's enough, but seeing a gap is not the same as building a working business in that gap. So yes, there are opportunities. There can be opportunities in services, tourism, practical local support, hybrid digital local businesses, buyer-focused services, specialized niche businesses, education-related support, or community-driven ideas. But opportunities only matter if you can execute them legally, sustainably, and intelligently. And this is where the law matters a lot, because the Philippines is not a place where foreigners should assume they can simply own, control, or structure every kind of business in the way they want without restrictions. Foreign ownership and participation rules matter. Business structure matters, permits matter, and local compliance matters. So one of the biggest mistakes people make is trying to move too fast without understanding the legal side first. That can create serious problems later. And even beyond legality, there is the practical reality of running a business in the Philippines. That means staffing, trust, operations, paperwork, suppliers, local expectations, payment systems, and communication culture. So, even if the idea is good, execution can still be much harder than expected. That's why I think the strongest business path is usually not arrive, spend a lot, build big immediately, but the stronger path is usually understanding the markets first, understanding the legal structure first and build based on real demand rather than fantasy. Another mistake people make is building a business around what sounds good to them instead of what people actually need. And this is especially dangerous for foreigners, because sometimes they project outside ideas into the Philippines without understanding how the market really behaves locally. So business opportunity is real, yes, but business naivety is also real. Now, could building a company in the Philippines be one of the most rewarding paths long term? Yes, definitely, especially for people who think long term, respect the local environment, and build around real value. Because if done well, a business can create more than just income. It can create independence, it can create stability, and it can create a future that is not tied to one employer or client. But this path requires the most maturity, the most patience, and the most realism. So if I had to summarize these three paths simply, I would say this: local work is the most traditional path, which usually comes with lower wages, more legal limitations, and the need to adapt your lifestyle much more. Online work and freelancing are often strong for younger adults because they give more flexibility and can disconnect you from local wage levels, but they require skill, discipline, and stable systems. And building your own company can be the most powerful long-term path, but also the riskiest and most demanding if you rush in without understanding the law, market, or local reality. So for younger adults moving to the Philippines, I think the biggest question is not how can I move there? The better question is what income structure actually makes sense for the kind of life I want there. Because moving young is not mainly about retirement planning, it is about building sustainability, it is about creating a life that can actually hold itself over time. And of course, while this video is broader than just Philippine Land Intel or Philippine Property Intel, both of those projects are also being built to help people make smarter long-term decisions in the Philippines, especially around location, property, business direction, and life planning. So if you're interested in that as well, you can check those out also. If you found this video useful, make sure to like and share it. And if you want more practical advice around moving to the Philippines, income strategy, business, expat life, and smarter decision making, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon. If you're a younger adult thinking about moving to the Philippines or already living there, feel free to share your own thoughts or experience in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.